This is HERkys Voice, a conversation with special Hawkeye guests focusing on the stories and people behind Hawkeye athletics. Now, here's the host of HERkys Voice, Iowa women's tennis coach, Sasha Schmid.
Welcome to HERkys Voice. Our Iowa rowing team is nearing the completion of their spring season, and they will compete at the Big Ten Championship on May 15th in Indianapolis, Indiana. I recently had the chance to visit with our associate head coach, Megan Fitzpatrick, and senior, Molly Rygh. We visited about their journey to Iowa, and I learned about our crew team's awesome homegrown Hawkeye program. Take a listen to Megan and Molly. Welcome to HERkys Voice. Today, we are getting an inside look into our Hawkeye crew and rowing program. I have two guests joining me today, and we're kind of excited to learn as much as we can about their personal stories and Iowa crew. I want to welcome in Associate Coach Megan Fitzpatrick. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thanks for joining us. And we also have one of our student athletes, Molly Rygh. Molly, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, of course.
So, Molly, tell me, you are a senior?
Yes.
Okay, and what are you studying at Iowa?
Yeah, so I'm studying elementary education. I have a few endorsements additionally. I actually came in as a business student, but then I made that switch to education.
We need teachers.
Yes, yeah.
So I'm so excited that you're here and want to hear about all of your stories and kind of get everyone's personal journey to Iowa, which is always so fun on HERkys Voice. So Megan, you and I knew each other a couple years ago when you were on our staff, and then you kind of took another position and got to go to Navy and kind of have a new experience on coaching staffs. And what's always wonderful is when we can bring great people back to Iowa. And so you rejoined our staff when Coach Garbett got the head job kind of at the ends of 2021. So let's go back and learn your story. Let's figure out where you were born. Tell me a little bit about your family and where you grew up.
Yeah, so I'm from New Jersey. So I was born actually technically in Philadelphia, but I grew up just outside of Atlantic City, so very similar area to Coach Garbett, and grew up not far from the beach. Well, my mom is a big beach person. So I grew up around there in New Jersey and just grew up kind of around the beach and
Water sports.
Yeah, it was, rowing is a little bit more well known in that area. It has a really rich tradition. The high school program I rowed for had rowing for 50 plus years. And so just in a place, an environment where rowing is just like any other sport, you might go out for volleyball, you might go out for rowing. I grew up in New Jersey and started rowing just in these little learn to row camps that they do out there. So middle school camps, it's kind of like something to do at night. You get to go out and row on the bay and learn the sport. Probably way too small to be able to do it, but it was a fun thing that we did with our town. It was in a beach town, so we'd spend the day on the beach and then spend a couple hours in boats at night. And so that's kind of how I first got introed into the sport. A group of friends, we all did it together, and it just became this kind of fun thing, knowing that when I went to high school, that's when the doors really opened for it. It's not something you can really do competitively in middle school. You're just not the size to be able to move a boat. And so it's more of prep and getting used to the sport. And then when I got in high school, it was kind of I was a soccer player all growing up. That was kind of my main sport, but I also I would say grew up on the fields. My dad was big in running our kind of town rec program. And so every night we were on some field or in some gym or wherever, something was going on, that's where we were. And so I was a big soccer player, but also just played everything. But kind of knowing when high school came around, I think rowing was what I wanted to do and get into. And so, that's when I kind of really started picking it up and getting competitive with it. And my freshman year, I just had a whole lot of fun. I had a great group. It's kind of cool. I guess similar to football in that when you're in high school, they kind of separate that freshman group. And it's similar in college as well, where it's kind of your first opportunity to stay within your class and you get to just train as a boat and you can only compete against freshmen. So it was really fun because I got to be with the same class and some people I had grown up with, but I went to a private Catholic high school in town. And so it was a mix. So I had girls that I grew up with. It was our town high school, and then also people from all other different towns. And it was just this really cool opportunity to like try a new ish sport with a whole bunch of new people. And we became really close and had this like great friendship and had a little bit of success. And I learned to just really love the sport.
And from high school, did you know you kind of wanted to move into crew collegiately?
I think I went back and forth a little bit. I knew that I wanted to be a collegiate athlete. I knew that I loved college athletics. I loved everything about it. But soccer was my first love. And so that's a hard thing to have to let go of. And I was in like my junior year of college and I wasn't great. I was a good average, I would say. And so there was a part of me that thought, okay, I could go Division 3 soccer and maybe Division 3 rowing and I can do it both. And then there was the other side of me that really wanted to be able to kind of explore the Division 1 athletics. And so I battled with that a little bit. I got hurt my junior year in college playing soccer. And so I kind of had to take a step back from the sport a little bit. And it actually is a little bit of what opened up my eyes to coaching. But that also made me kind of really have to then transition to rowing. So I kind of took that step back my junior year playing soccer, not being able to play, and really then put all my energy into rowing that spring. And that's when I kind of knew like this is what it's going to be. I want to do this sport and I want to do it at the highest level that I can do it, and trying to balance the two would just be tough. So got into college kind of back and forth between teaching and coaching and what does coaching look like. And as I graduated, I left and I had an opportunity to start coaching or to start teaching, but it was just at a little bit of a crossroads with, I went to school in Oklahoma, I'd moved stuff back to Jersey, just kind of figuring out what was next. And I decided that I could always come back to teaching, but I wanted to pursue coaching and trying to find a grad assistant role to be able to get my foot in the door and see what was out there. So the Iowa one was open, and I was a few steps away from going to another school, but things just fell into place with Iowa. And I kind of said, how do I pass up? It had a grad program I was interested in the sport and rec management program. And then it's Iowa, it's Big Ten, it's a high level. It was a kind of new kind of kickstart to a program. So it was pretty much a done deal. Got out here as soon as I could after that. So just a great opportunity.
I can only imagine when you end up taking the grad position here at Iowa and you come to Iowa City, the beautiful river, but our facilities for our boathouse.
Oh, yeah. And I went to the University of Tulsa, and we were a 30-minute drive from practice every day. So every day you were getting on a bus and going out there. And so to be able to be in a place where it was on campus and there's this accessibility and our ergs and the water was all in the same place, it was just, it was beautiful.
So you stayed here, got your master's, did graduate degree coaching, which we had tremendous success during your time here, and then got an opportunity to go take another step forward in coaching at Navy.
Yeah. I just, I was looking to kind of learn a little bit more, when you're in one place for a bit of time young, I wanted to kind of open up that door, and the Navy came open, and it was just such a unique place. And I just thought, how do you not kind of explore that? I've heard from so many people the value of getting to coach at a place like that, at a military academy, where there's just so many different things than just your sport. And it was a little bit of, I felt like a necessary humbling experience in that you as a coach and within your sport, you're not number one and you don't get to be. The military and their academics will always come before you. And there's no pushing the limits on that. And so I think it was a great opportunity to take a step back and have to kind of say, you can't just put more on their plate and expect to get better that way. You have to figure out a way to actually coach better and to actually use the time that you have most effectively, because anything beyond that is not in your control. Their schedules are so structured outside of that, and you don't come first. So yeah, it was just like this unbelievable opportunity to just kind of take a step back from the Big Ten environment and college athletics and say, how do we still have those same goals, still goals to get to the NCAA championship? We still competed at that level, but just doing it in a way that really thinks about the student athlete's future first, because when they graduate, they're serving the country, and that takes precedence over anything else that we're doing there.
And through that great experience that I know you and I have chatted about, you learned and you grew and really enjoyed it. You were really happy, but then comes an opportunity that maybe you weren't expecting, but the opportunity to come back, rejoin Coach Garbutt, and come back to Iowa City.
I never would have thought that I would leave there at that time. But yeah, I mean, the opportunity came, and someone like Molly was a freshman when I left at the end of her freshman year. And so there's still an attachment to the team and the people here and her whole class. I cared a lot about them and why they got into the sport and why they stayed in the sport. And so knowing that an opportunity kind of came back and wanting to just re-come back to that group of, let's kind of get things back to where it was when they were freshmen and the reasons they love the sport. And Coach Garbutt and I, we worked together in the past. And so, when he called, it was kind of like a little bit of a no-brainer, like, all right, let's do this. Let's kind of, as everyone joked, get the band back together and see if we can kind of get back to that class and get them going again.
Well, I love that. And, it's always really sad to be able to form relationships that are really intense and meaningful in collegiate athletics, and then sometimes have a coaching change. That can be really, really hard. But the fact that you would able to come back to a program where you already knew many of the student athletes that were in the program is really, really special. And I remember the press conference announcing Coach Garbutt coming back, and just the smiles that were on the faces of so many of the student athletes that were so excited to see him returning and taking over as a leader of the program. Really, like, it just warms your heart. Molly, we are so happy that you found your way to the Iowa Crew program. Megan, or as we call her, Fitzy, has told me wonderful things about you. I'm super curious to kind of share your story with our Hawkeye community. Let us know where you grew up and how you found your way. Tell me about your family and how you found your way to Iowa rowing.
Yeah, so I am from Cedar Falls, Iowa, so pretty close. The University of Northern Iowa is there, and I never really saw that as my future school. I knew I wanted to go somewhere else, but I wasn't exactly sure where that is. My mom actually rowed at the University of Wisconsin, so that's kind of how my family learned about rowing and kind of like knew it existed. And rowing is something that, I knew my mom did it. I didn't know anything about it, but I was like, oh, like I should try that maybe someday. And it was kind of always in the back of my head. And I have an older sister. She's like a year older than me, grade wise. So when it came time to go to college and she came to Iowa, obviously we both knew that my mom rowed, and she started to look into rowing. So she actually walked on her freshman year. So I would have been a senior in high school. And as she did that, I would come watch the races or like see kind of what's going on. And one time I struck up a conversation with Coach Garbutt, and he was like, do you want to row? And I was like, well, like I would try it, like, sure. And after that conversation, things kind of fell into place. I ended up coming on an official visit, doing all the stuff with the NCAA and like getting my name in to be eligible to do college sports and all those things. And I ended up walking on to the team as a freshman. So before coming to Iowa, I had never rowed. I knew about it. I'd watched it a little bit because my sister did it, but I wouldn't say that I knew much. I actually did volleyball for a bit in high school. My senior year, I ran cross country, and I threw the shot put and the discus on the track team. But I wouldn't say that I was like particularly like excellent at any of the athletics that I did in high school, right? Like I was all right. Like I did it for fun. And I had fun, but Cedar Falls has a reputation for having some like very high caliber athletes. I think like 5 girls on the starting volleyball team like went D1. So like I wasn't in that position. Like I wasn't gonna go D1 in the sports that I did in high school. But I did it for fun. So when the opportunity to row at Iowa came along, I was really eager to try it and just to continue to be in a competitive environment and just be a part of a team.
I think there's so many people that can identify with that,
Yeah.
Molly. And I think, the ability to play Division I athletics is so incredibly competitive. But many times we've talked about, with your coaches about how it's this transferable athleticism that can come from being able to be an athlete, but just needs to find its outlet and sometimes developing later in life a little bit. Megan, what did you see in Molly when you were coaching her as a freshman when she walked on?
Yeah, so it's funny because I coached Katie when she was a freshman, her older sister, and I thought Katie was awesome. Like, just there was a personality in Katie that was just always kind of like up for anything, ready to take on a challenge, coachable. And I remember Katie saying, "Oh yeah, but my sister's coming too," and like she's more athletic, or she would always kind of allude to Molly. And so then when Molly came, it was like, oh, all right, this is going to be that younger sister, one that like really is like, I love the sport. And then Molly showed up, and I was coaching the freshmen at the time, and it was the same thing. Like, it was no matter what we asked of Molly, she was going to do it, and she was going to also lead the rest of the group to do that. There's always those people on the team that you can kind of say, hey, we're going to go out, for a warm up run, and we're going to go do this. And it doesn't take many words from Molly for everybody to start following. And so just like that natural leadership ability came out. And then on top of it, it was like she was always there to kind of do and learn. She picked up on what the upper class were doing and jumped in with them. They're doing extra workouts. I'm going to go with them, and I'm going to be a part of it. I just want to kind of be a part of the team and do whatever it takes. And so that was kind of that like first sign. And I had her for a little bit with the freshmen, and doing a great job. And then it wasn't long before she kind of got like scooped up into those higher boats, just because of that ability, again, to just kind of respond to anything, take it on, and just keep getting better.
Awesome. Molly, what did you love about that? And you've got to find some sort of joy, because it's not easy. These aren't easy things. It's not, you're working really hard. What was it about the sport and this environment and this team that made you have such enthusiasm for the challenges?
Yeah, so I think to begin, I was kind of clueless as to what was going on. So, right, I would show up to practice and I would do it, and I would just go hard. Like I would just come and do it. And I think a lot of times, like, especially my freshman year, as I was like gaining these new experiences, rowing in different boats with different people, I had no idea what I was supposed to be expecting. I was just doing it, right? I would go in and do the extra work because like Fitzy said, that's what the other girls were doing, right? So the older girls kind of set that model and that expectation, and I kind of followed in that sense, and then like kind of grabbed others to join me in that. I don't know, like, I feel like I have a competitive spirit, right? Like, I'm always looking at the girl who's, like, a little bit better than me, and I'm like, oh, like, I want to go get her, And I think a lot of that came out freshman year, because when we started to do evals and stuff on the HERkys my freshman year, started to do performance tests, like, I wasn't at the top of the pack, and I remember it very vividly. Like, certain girls would do better than me, and I was like, gosh dang it, like, I'm not going to be good at this. Like, maybe this isn't for me. And I just kept showing up, and I kept seeing that growth and that progress. And I think that really like motivated me, because I saw the work that I was putting in, and I saw how it was like benefiting my performance. So, yeah.
So this is all kind of a part of what, Fitzy, you and Coach Garbett call homegrown Hawkeye program within our crew. And Molly's just a shining example of that program. What's the initial reasons why you started this program? How has it grown? And how can somebody who's listening who might have such a similar story to Molly reach out and kind of look at this opportunity for themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the things that we kind of love talking about. And just It's unique to our sport. I think our sport is a late entry sport to begin with. So you're not getting in a boat until you're in high school, even in an area where it's a high level sport, maybe a touch younger, but you're really not fully competing until high school. And so when you compare that to other sports, other sports you're starting when you're 5, 6 years old. So by the time you get to college, there's this massive gap that you would have to make up. In our sport, it's a 4-year gap because you do join a little bit later, and it's really based on that athleticism and that background. And so as we kind of got to know and got to understand Iowa and this program and what it's about, the Big Ten in general tends to operate this way, but there was this cool niche for, hey, there's a lot of people walking around this campus that said, yeah, I probably can't play D1 volleyball, or, you can't play that sport that you've been playing all your life, but I want to be a Hawkeye. Like, I'm going to Iowa no matter what, because that's my school, that's my sport. I love this environment. I love going to the football games or being a part of this kind of athletic community, even if you're not an athlete. And so we found that there's so many of those women walking around campus. And on top of that, you have a lot of athletes that are maybe just got to a point where they're burnt out in the sport that they've done their whole life. And they kind of hit that point where they said, I don't want to keep going. I want to take a new path. But then you arrive at college and you say, wait a second, I am competitive. I do have that spirit. I do love being around a team. And how do I find that kind of that outlet a little bit? And so we went on campus, did a lot of on-campus recruiting, and just found people around the school. And that stemmed into, hey, why don't we start doing this searching ahead of time? Why don't we open up the doors to get some seniors to understand that this is an opportunity before they get to college. And maybe this is something that allows them to say, I can go to Iowa, or, I've swam my whole life and I can't be in a pool anymore, or, you're bogged down by certain splits and you feel this feeling of like, I'm never going to get better in my sport. I am who I am. And all of a sudden this new door opens up, and wait a second, I can translate all of this over. You still know how to train. You're still strong. You have this endurance. That hasn't changed. It's just that mental switch. Now we kind of put you in a new environment and see people just take off. And we saw this like just awesome environment because we have people that love to be a Hawkeye. So they're going to work extremely hard, and it's an opportunity to not only be here, but to compete for Iowa, a school that they love, a place that they love, families love the Hawkeyes, and yeah, just kind of create these opportunities. And it's really impactful and meaningful to have a group of women that never thought that this was something that they could have. I wasn't good enough in this sport. I wasn't good enough in that sport, or I hit such a mental block, or this sport was always because my parents wanted me to do this sport, not because I wanted to. And to see them come to college and say, this is your path now. You're an adult now. You choose your sport. You decide, the kind of future that you want in athletics. And it just has such a life and energy to it. It's a fresh start. So I kind of ramble on for days.
Oh, I love it.
I think it's interesting too. Like, everyone on the rowing team right now, like, has a story, right? Like, I have friends that are like, oh yeah, I remember, so-and-so who was a senior when I was a freshman walked up to me at on-campus orientation, asked if I want to join the rowing team. I signed my name on a paper and here I am now, right? Like so many girls have such a wide variety of stories on how they got here. So that's just so interesting and really cool.
Yeah. And we still kind of go through, I think the uniqueness of that freshman category is, we can bring a big group out, try it out. We kind of have a sense as coaches of, hey, this could be for you. This is definitely for you, or this maybe isn't for you. And so then you're kind of fitting into these little niches on our team. And then there's this category within the Big Ten that competes at every race that we compete in. It's no different than our top crew, but you're competing against people kind of in that same level. It's a relay team. If you have A, B, and C relays, that's kind of how we're structured in a sense. And so you get to compete and kind of work your way through. And there's some people that will row for 1 year, and then it's maybe say, yeah, you know what, I'm not ready for that next step up, or I gotta put my path other. But then there's others that their first year they're kind of still figuring it out, getting their feet underneath them, understanding it, and all of a sudden your sophomore year something clicks and now you're one of the top on the team. Like, there's just so many opportunities to grow within a team roster as well, which is pretty cool to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's really unique, and I think it's one of the things that is definitely a total gift from the crew program. And if someone's interested in learning more about this, I know during the pandemic, so many of us had to stop our summer camps, but what are you guys doing this summer to be able to give somebody who's potentially going to be entering senior year of high school a chance to get an inside look into what it feels like to get in a boat and get in the water?
Yeah, so what we try to do is like more sport clinic style, and so because rowing would be a new sport to these high school students, it would be a little bit more of spending some time kind of little in the weight room, a little bit of running, a little bit of biking, and kind of learning the sport. So we're still kind of nailing in those throughout the summer. We tend to do those during the year, like during the fall semester, just to kind of get over to the boathouse and meet the team a little bit. I think that's the big piece of it too, is seeing and hearing the stories from where everyone's kind of come from. That makes it feel a little bit more comfortable. You're not as intimidated when you start to kind of hear everybody else's story. But yeah, our biggest thing is just kind of going on and checking out our website, and there's a questionnaire we have that's specific for what we call talent transfer recruits. So we have our traditional rowing recruits, and then we have our talent transfer recruits. So filling that out, because it's kind of a not rowing specific, you're able to fill out, the other things that you do, your other athletic backgrounds that you have, and kind of going from there. And then just kind of, keeping an eye out for just different sports clinics that we'll do.
I love that. I'm curious, Molly, when you came and joined and you were talking about some of your conditioning tests and some of the different evaluations you were taking place, talk a little bit about what those are. What was the hardest thing? I'm thinking about somebody listening that's interested, like something that might help them have a better idea of what this experience looks like.
Yeah. So when you first come in, typically they'll take the novice group, which is that first year group of rowers. And usually you just start off with like conditioning, right? So we did these things called T-runs, where you run out the parking lot of the boathouse, you turn left, you turn around, you turn right, and then you come back. And then you do some like, body weight squats and things like that, just to get your body ready and kind of make a cardio base, I would say. So I think that's probably like the first few weeks. And then you transition into working on the HERkys, which is like the rowing machine. You learn how to row on the erg, and then slowly you'll move into the boat. Honestly, like the really difficult and like challenging workouts, they're not going to come right away because you're just learning the sport, right? A lot of the form and technique you need to learn before you start doing like really long workouts and stuff like that. But I think that the neat thing is if you come in with some amount of athleticism or some amount of a cardio like training, like you will be able to feel it out, right? Like if you're athletic and you can move your body and you're fit, like it all kind of comes together on the rowing machine. And in my case, that was kind of my story. Like I was running like a ton right before I came to college. So I think that really helped me because I was cardiovascularly like fit. Yeah. So as long as you're athletic, like it's not too much at the beginning. Obviously, you as college sports go, like it gets more challenging and you'll continue to like push yourself. But yeah.
How hard was the technique for you?
I mean, there's different parts that maybe come challenging to different people. I think I struggle with like hip flexibility. So some of that like length and reaching out was challenging for me at the beginning. But learning the stroke wasn't too bad. I would say that I think first I learned it on the erg, and then we kind of moved into the tanks, and then you move into like an 8 on the water. So you kind of really gradually like learn the technique, which is I think a good just way to build on itself. So it wasn't too difficult. I mean, obviously there's like really particular nitpicky things that kind of come along as you grow as a rower, but at the beginning I don't think it was too much.
I'm wondering what was been in this experience kind of some of your favorite memories.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said earlier, when I was a freshman, things were just kind of coming at me. Like like Fitzy was kind of describing, like I trained in the novice boat for a while. I raced in there, I think probably once. And then over spring training, I got moved up into the fours group with Coach Garbett. And then I rode in the fours. I remember my first race was at at the Pac-12 Invite in Redwood Shores, California. This is where I was kind of like, what is even happening right now? What am I doing? We were racing against like the #1 team in the country. So it was very overwhelming, but it was cool. I was like, wow, this is real. Okay. So I raced in the fours group for a while, and then I got seat raced into the 2V. And so I raced in the second varsity boat and through the entirety of my freshman year as a first year rower. So I think a lot of my freshman year was just so cool because everything was just coming. We were going to these races, racing against ranked teams, kind of seeing how rowing works. And to me, like every time we would go to a race, I would just be like, wow, like this is a real thing. Like it's not a joke, you know, like a lot of times I think sometimes on campus, like people are like, oh, the rowers, but for real, it's real, you know, and we put in so much work, and it is the same as like any other D1 sport. We put in the same amount of effort and work, and we travel and we do the hard things. So I think just realizing that it is for real was one thing. And again, like everything was just kind of coming at me. I think one of the highlights of my freshman year was getting to compete at the NCAA championships. And I think, you know, like there's challenges throughout the season, but I was kind of just like going into practice every day, doing my thing, like being a part of this varsity crew that I mean, again, I really had no idea what I was doing. Like I would just show up and be with the older girls, and it was fun. And we were just kind of going through the season. And then to be able to compete at the NCAA championships as a freshman, again, was one of those moments where I was like, this is so real. You know, we're competing against the top teams in the country. Like a ton of Big Ten schools were there. And just getting to experience kind of that really like peak athletic, you know, that's what you dream about as a kid. So that was probably one of my biggest memories as a freshman. Yeah.
And you were one of those people that earned the bid to the NCAA championship, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about these ranked teams. Like that was you. That was you kind of that got the team there and built that depth. And just giving her a little credit where it's
you are. No, absolutely awesome. And I think you couldn't find a better illustration of the power of this homegrown Hawkeye program transforming really your collegiate experience.
Right.
And, you know, the pride and the work that you put in and what that means for you. It totally probably changed the course of what your entire vision of your college experience was going to be.
Yeah. I think, just being a part of the athletics department too has been something that, you know, I didn't expect to get this. I honestly didn't expect to get this deep into this. Like, you know, like I came, I was like, oh, I'm going to row. Like, I didn't know what it was going to look like. But, you know, now I have such a deep community through like all the staff. And I feel like I'm so connected too. And I think that's really added to my college experience as well.
No, that's it. I love hearing these stories, and I'm so excited to share this with our Hawkeye community. You actually had your collegiate career overlap a COVID year, which has now given you an extra year of eligibility.
Yep.
And so you plan to return next year. Tell us about your plans, and it is exciting to be able to have one additional year of eligibility.
Yeah, so I knew that I had a 5th year of eligibility, and I was kind of thinking about, you know, do I want to take that? Do I not want to take it? Do I want to take it somewhere else? Like, how does that look? I honestly, I was kind of at a loss. I didn't know what to do. And then we had a coaching transition this fall, and that kind of, when all that happened, I was like even more lost. I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I don't know what happens when a new coach comes in. I don't know, like, if they even want me here. Like, I really had no clue. And then you were kind of talking about that press conference earlier, and I will tell you that the day when Garbutt walked in that door, like, will forever be in my mind. Like, there's a picture of him walking into the door right behind Gary Bardo with like a folder in his hand. I don't know. It's in my brain, you know? And that, like, to me, like, really changed the game. Like, I knew when he walked into the door that what I wanted to do. Like, I knew I wanted to stay, and I knew that he would support me in doing that. And so when that all happened, it kind of really just secured. I was like, okay, I'm going to stay, but now what am I going to do? You know, like the academics kind of came second. I'm actually graduating with my degree in elementary education, and I am putting off my student teaching because I think it'd be too difficult for me to balance the two. So I'm going to pursue a certificate in event management just for fun.
Awesome.
Kind of like you said, like COVID kind of messed with a lot of things, and I'm just looking to like enjoy college a little bit. And I have an extra year to do that, and I'm excited to like pour a lot of my energy into rowing, like volunteering and things like that. And then also just, take some classes on the side.
Well, and Fitzy, you get to have this leadership back.
Yes. Can't beat it.
Bonus.
Yeah. No, that was huge. Like coming back and, same thing. You don't know what you're going to walk into a little bit. Being gone for 2.5 years, like you don't know how they're feeling, how they are. And, there's, a group of Molly and Kirsten Jurgerson, and those two are kind of like rocks for me as freshmen, just in like coaching. And so coming back and knowing like, okay, not only are they still here for this year, but like we're going to be able to have them next year. That's just huge in this, like as a coach, like you can take a sigh, a deep breath when you have kind of the leaders already intact. And that was like huge, and just giving us the opportunity to rebuild them as leaders and kind of rebuild that confidence and that trust, and just like, we're going to be good to go as long as we have them on our side. So knowing that like Molly is sticking around, like allows us to know that we're going to get a lot of good work done going into next year.
Oh, very exciting. Very exciting. Give us a little bit of an update on how this season's been going and what you're looking for on the finish and what you're looking for in the year ahead.
Yeah, it's been an exciting year. We've had a lot, although, we're coming back, and it's kind of some old ways. There's still a lot of new, and there's still a lot of learning. There's a lot of the team we're still getting to know. And we came in just before we kind of broke first semester. So it's been a little bit of like just on like double time, trying to catch up on everything and get everybody up to speed. And I think it was really important that we were kind of building the culture of the program a little bit, and setting some things in this is the way that we're going to train, and this is the mindset that we're going to have, and this is the way that we're going to kind of embrace each other as a team and build together, and the importance of the entire team, from 1 to 65. And so that was kind of a lot of the season. And I think we're seeing that. I think we're seeing people just step up and do a lot better than people expected. There was, a lot of rowing coaches are saying, wow, like what you guys are doing is pretty good, when you would think that there was potential for crumbling at that time of a coaching transition. And so we're just getting better every week. The depth of our roster is really showing itself, I think, within the Big Ten. And so now we're about 2 weeks out from the Big Ten championship. So May 14th. It is so the Sunday of that week. So we're really looking forward to this time to just kind of focus in on like what can we do at the Big Ten championships. That's the exciting part about our sport, is everybody lines up on that day. So no matter what you've done in the regular season, you have the opportunity to show up that day and perform. So it's 1 by 2,000 meters and first one to the finish wins. So just an exciting time to see how we can kind of do and put a cap on it on the season as a team. And that'll kind of carry us into the next year, and see there's always a chance within the Big Ten to get a bid to the NCAA championship. So doing whatever we can to get some medals around some necks this next couple weeks, and let that carry us into the future of the program.
Well, awesome. Where is the Big Ten championship this year?
Indianapolis.
Okay.
Eagle Creek Park, Indianapolis. Windy
Indy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, May 14th, I'll be following. I have loved this conversation, and I am a big fan of your program and all the things you do in so many ways, and definitely be cheering for a strong finish, and good things are ahead, no doubt. Molly, thank you so much for coming in and joining us. I've loved your story. It's truly an awesome one, and I'm excited for all of our Hawkeye listeners to learn about you and cheer you on.
Thank you.
And so glad you're back, Fitzy.
Thanks.
Yep, making Iowa better.
Yeah, thanks for having us today.
I've appreciated this. And you guys, as always, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
This has been HERkys Voice. The mission of the HERkys program is to help our Hawkeye community learn, support, and engage with Iowa women's athletics. To learn more about the HERkys initiative, visit herkys.hawkeyesports.com. Hawkeye fans, remember to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Once you become a Fight for Iowa podcast subscriber, you'll automatically receive the latest episodes of the Fight for Iowa podcast, the HERkys Voice podcast, Hawk Talk replays, exclusive game day content, and more. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Hawkeye Sports Network.